So getting into volume 6 of Jobless Reincarnation, this is a very, very heavy volume. It definitely really ends things on a big note. And this feels like the end of one big chapter and the beginning of another big chapter for Rudy's life. And this is basically the exit moment for Eris, because of course with her decisions at the end of the volume which led to her leaving Rudy. But if I note on that, she is terrible at writing notes, like, or letters in general. But again, it's not like she was really taught much in that area, and with everything going on in the Demon Continent, it didn't really give her much of an opportunity to continue learning that stuff. So let's get to the start of the actual volume itself. The beginning of it is to do with the man god, and the man god basically assisting Rudy in trying to find Aisha, Lilith. Basically, Rudy's like, hey, if you want me to not be so confrontational and so agitated with you, you need to give me some breadcrumbs, you need to tell me something useful, tell me where my family is. And so, of course, the man god agrees and basically says, hey, this is where Aisha is, this is where Lilith is, and you need to do these following things to be able to get them. Rudy basically agrees to doing that and follows the instructions pretty much to the letter, which leads to some pretty crazy moments, which of course is where Rudy sends a letter to the castle thinking Roxy is still there, basically asking for assistance. And there's a lot of other stuff going on, like slaves being sold, and it's pretty grim, dark times, especially with the whole situation going on, with everyone kind of in chaos, with people missing, people dying, power struggles, power vacuums, you name it. There's a lot of bad stuff going on, which is something that Rudy does point out. So that, of course, leads to Rudy kind of coming up with a plan with Eris and Rigid to save, of course, his two family members, being Lilith and Aisha. And of course, this is one character that was introduced earlier on, which is of course who Roxy was also tutoring, and he is pretty much very much of a creep, and continues to be, because basically Rudy gets put into a trap. The thing that's really kind of scary though is this guy's brother, because what leads up to this is Rudy of course bumps into Aisha, saves Aisha in the streets, runs back, basically silent casting, kind of a big deal. The guards kind of deliberately don't tell the full truth to, of course, the higher-ups of who did what, and they kind of make it sound all weird and muddled, and you can kind of tell that the guards aren't really on board with whoever's in charge with the whole situation, being, of course, the one that Roxy was tutoring, the creep. And that is where Rudy tries to do sort of a hero act, where he tries to go in there and of course thinks, oh yeah, I'm going to be able to walk in there, talk to this guy, and Roxy will be there and everything will work out and he'll be the hero. But no, it is a trap, and it leads to him being in a pretty dire situation where of course the guy basically says that he's going to turn Rudy into his slave and basically do it in front of Rudy. This guy is pretty messed up in the head. He's a couple of fries short of a Happy Meal, let's just say that. This guy is wonko. But there are even more wonko peoples in this castle, which is to do with a guy that collects dolls or figures, which is of course Zenobar, however you pronounce it, which he basically rips people's heads off. Yeah, he rips people's heads off. That was something I did not expect coming, and when I read that I was like, what? Kind of reminded me of a really old movie that was based on like this giant that was like a really nice guy, but he would have these like sort of moments where he would sort of lose it and lose control, and then would end up hurting people because he couldn't control his emotions. That's basically what this reminds me of, is that particular movie. Can't remember the name of the movie, but if someone does and I can find it on the internet and remember it, then so be it. But it kind of reminded me of that. This guy has exceptional power and is feared because of that power, but also people don't really want to get rid of him because of that power. And he's also kind of got this weird behavior where he constantly wants figures, statues, etc., and he idolizes them. And of course he has Roxy's statue, and that is where of course Rudy did bring one of his new statues to kind of, I don't know, offer as a peace giving, kind of sell it, kind of that kind of thing, which of course led to this guy seeing that and basically starts to interrogate him while in prison, going, hey, what's the deal with this? I want to know who made this. And I think the guy kind of twigged pretty quickly that it was Rudy that made it, which leads to them making a sort of a pact together to get Rudy out of that situation, which of course leads to, of course, Pax being the creep, almost having his head ripped off. That's what I mean. It's pretty crazy. Like, you think Pax is crazy, this guy is also crazy as well. It's like the whole family is just completely wonkos. But of course that leads to the situation kind of being resolved. Pax gets exiled. The other guy also gets into a lot of trouble as well. Things kind of resolve in a somewhat positive manner, but still everything's pretty messed up. Aisha, Lilith basically are freed, and of course have been sent back, and they're on their trip to go see Paul to basically be safe and sound. But of course, during that whole process, Rudy basically was told, do not tell Aisha that you're her brother. And of course, she kind of talks about her brother in a not so positive light, basically calling him a bit of a creep and everything. But the thing that I love about Aisha is she is way too smart for her own good. Like, she is one smart little cookie. Like, whew. She twigs very quickly that it's Rudy that's pretending to be the mad dog. And that's what makes it really fun at the end as well. There's a bonus chapter with Lilith, and Aisha kind of is pretending like how she wants to be with the mad dog himself, because oh my god, he's so amazing. So Lilith kind of wants her to serve Rudy, but she's like, oh no, I don't want to serve Rudy, I want to serve the mad dog, you know, he's so amazing, he saved me, whooshed, you know, me off my feet and all the rest. And it's pretty obvious after a while. It's just kind of like, she knows that the mad dog is Rudy, and she's just toying with Lilith, and that's where Lilith kind of twigs to it as well. She's a tease, she's really fun, but Rudy hasn't twigged, and basically she is off to see Paul, but just before she leaves, she says, see you later, big brother. And that's where Rudy's kind of having like a mental dilemma, thinking, wait, did she just call me big brother because I saved her, or was it that she twigged that I'm a big brother? So there's that fun little chemistry between the two. I just think, yeah, the chemistry between these two are pretty fun. Again, they make a good sort of brother-sister complex. Nothing weird in it, so again, relax. Everything turned out pretty well. Of course, Ridget and Eris also assisted in their own way as well, and Rudy kind of felt like he didn't really do much to assist because they were doing their own thing, and they ended up causing up a big storm as well, so yeah. And the next part after that I thought was hilarious, because I see so many people online complaining about how Rudy is overpowered with his eye and everything. And if I could give the least amount of context to what happens, random guy walks down the street, Rudy says hi, he says, oh, do you know the man god? He goes, yeah. Rudy dies. That's the end. I just thought it was hilarious, because to give context to the whole situation, a new character that was already introduced, but more introduced on a much more larger scale, is Orsted, and he is of course a dragon god, and he's walking past. Eris and Ridget are freaking out because they're scared, it's part of the curse. Rudy kind of talks to the guy, or tries to approach him, and Orsted basically says, do you know the man god? And Rudy just thinks this is like, hey, someone else knows of this guy that's in my dreams, and Rudy points that out, and Orsted goes, nope, I don't like you, because he thinks he is one of the man god's apostles. And Orsted basically mops the floor of everyone, Ridget, Eris, and Rudy. Rudy does, you know, put up a bit of a fight, but yeah, Rudy just gets the mop flopped. He just, yeah, it's all over Red Rover. There's nothing Rudy can do, and he's pretty much on death's doors. Technically, in my eyes, Rudy died, and then Orsted just brought him back to life because of the girl that was with him that said, you know, does he really need to die? So out of the whim of Orsted, basically Rudy gets brought back to life. And that in-between moment where Rudy is almost dead, he is talking to the man god, and the man god explains the whole situation. But again, this kind of brings up another major point that's been brought up by other people in the previous volumes, and people just saying that Rudy's overpowered, he gets everything handed to him. The man god is not a charity. He's manipulating and using Rudy for his own benefits. And so yeah, Rudy gets this eye, he gets all these benefits, but the man god's doing this deliberately to build trust with Rudy, to make Rudy into someone that he can use and manipulate and puppet. That is the obvious point of it. It's as clear as day that the man god is using Rudy, and Rudy is just a puppet right now. But everyone kind of treats the man god as like he's the cheat code for Rudy. No, Rudy's being used. Rudy just hasn't twigged to that. Well, actually, Rudy has twigged to it. He knows to be very skeptical of the man god, but at the same time, the man god is really trying to win him over, and that's kind of the tug of war. Rudy kind of knows there's something up, but to what degree? At least how I've interpreted it from the light novels. With everything that happens, basically Eris freaks out because, of course, she didn't even have a chance against this guy. This guy is super powerful. And one thing he also points out, and is almost in a mocking sense, is because Rudy can silent cast, and Orsted works that out, when Rudy's almost dead, Rudy has to use magic to put air into his lungs so he can talk, so that he can use an incantation to heal himself. And Orsted basically says, why can't you just do silent casting for healing? You can basically do it for the rest, so why can't you do it for healing? And previously, before that, it is pointed out that, of course, the elf girl that Rudy was teaching can do silent casting for healing, but Rudy can't. And again, that comes down to the whole Rudy isn't overpowered. Rudy can't do everything. Rudy can't do silent casting for healing because he doesn't understand the fundamentals of how healing works. He understands other stuff like fire, water, etc., etc. So, again, easy peasy, but he doesn't know how to do silent casting healing. And that is a limitation, because again, Rudy wasn't able to talk. So he had to force air into his lungs with magic to be able to talk, to heal. It's pretty clever, but at the same time, if he could just do silent casting healing, he'd be even stronger. And all the limitation would be down to his mana. But again, he can't. So again, it's another hindrance. Eris basically freaks out, Rujit freaks out because neither of them was strong enough. But Eris, I feel like Eris is the one that takes the biggest hit from this whole situation, because Eris gets home, she finds out her entire family is dead. Ghislaine is not happy. The butler wants to ship her off to another family to basically build ties so that they can rebuild, you know, the area that's been destroyed. And Ghislaine is not on board with that. She's basically like, no, Eris should run away, elope with Rudy so that they can be happy and don't have to deal with this politics. Ghislaine is very much on the same page as Rudy in the sense of, you shouldn't force Eris to do what she doesn't want to do. Rudy's not even on the idea of them running away together, but more on the idea of, no, Eris shouldn't be forced into a family that she doesn't want to be in. She shouldn't be forced to do what she doesn't want to do. But the butler kind of is looking out for the people, while Ghislaine is looking out for Eris, and so's Rudy. Basically, Eris goes down this mindset of she's lost everyone. She's got no family, she's got no one. All she has is Ghislaine and Rudy, because Rujit has just left. He's basically gone, I've done my job, I'm now on my journey going elsewhere. And that's the end for him. So all Eris has is Rudy and Ghislaine. So, yeah. The next part to that is, of course, Eris getting into bed with Rudy. Basically, she seduces Rudy because he did try to resist. And that's something I feel like people are trying to twist, because I've seen some people try to claim that Rudy forced himself onto Eris. No, Rudy tried to resist Eris because I feel like he felt that, you know, he made a promise, he was going to wait until she was older, and of course, he could tell that Eris was in pain. She was suffering, she was lonely, she basically said, I want a family. That's it. Because she has no family now, so she's basically gone to the last thing she has, and that's Rudy basically saying, well fine, let's get together, let's elope, let's run away, and let's make a family. And Rudy is trying to resist that because he can see, at least, you know, Rudy's been mature here, that he can see that Eris is in pain. She's not been rational. But of course, she does seduce him in saying some pretty, you know, naughty things. She kind of does the meow meow seduction trick that her mother taught her, and basically Rudy just loses control. They basically do it, and in the morning, Eris is gone. She picks up her stuff and she leaves. And I don't think she even really picks up her stuff. She just kind of just leaves. She grabs Ghislaine and leaves. But her reasoning in the letter confuses Rudy. Because basically, the wording is just so open-ended. It's just like, alright, I'm leaving, see you, bye. That's it. It almost makes it sound like she left because she just doesn't want to be with Rudy anymore and she just got bored of him. And that puts him in a bit of a downward spiral because he feels like it's his fault that she left, when in reality the reason why she left, and this is in her own individual chapter from her perspective, so there are multiple chapters going through different perspectives. One for Roxy that's talking about her adventures, completely separated from this, but then there's also the Lilith chapter, which I spoke about before. Then there's the Rudy chapter looking from his perspective of the events that played out. And then, of course, Eris's chapter, which explains that she feels that she is inferior. She is having a superiority complex issue where she feels she is too weak to Rudy. because he has the eye, he has all this power, he's gifted, he has this insane mana pool, he's got silent casting, he's smart, he can speak multiple languages, like he's gifted, and she feels that he is just too good for her and that she is always going to be in his shadows, and she feels that she needs to do more and be better as a swordswoman to be able to stand side by side by Rudy. Like, she genuinely really loves Rudy, and she's loved him since the birthday party when she was forced into offering herself by her mother. And again, context to all that time back, she was forced into that by her mother. It was pretty obvious. And of course, her father as well. They were trying to force Rudy and her together for political reasons. The mother doing it because more that she felt sorry for Rudy. The father was doing it for political reasons. But Eris did have genuine feelings for Rudy, which was why she forgave him for being a little bit too hands-on-y. So from both perspectives, you can understand why both feel the way they feel about each other. Rudy feels like she just ditched him. She left him because she felt inferior and she needed to be better, to be able to stand side by side, to protect him because of what happened with Orsted. Because, again, he almost died because of that whole situation. The only reason why he lived was because the very person that actually almost killed him brought him back to life, which no one else would have been able to do there. So, again, by the whims of another woman there that was with Orsted, brought Rudy back. So, again, it throws everything into a massive, massive headspin. Like, this volume has got a lot of stuff going on, a lot to digest. I feel like I will be making another analysis video at some point, digging even deeper into my thoughts, but there's a lot to digest. I think both sides just have a different perspective of what happened, and that's why you have those two separate chapters to give you an idea of what's going on. Kind of reminds me of the previous volume with Paul and Rudy, where both sides you can understand and sympathize by why they're both angry at each other. But of course, when you look at both perspectives from an outside perspective, like the ivory tower looking down on everything, you can see which side is in the right and which side is in the wrong. It's just Eris didn't communicate her feelings. And I feel like if she communicated her feelings better in the letter, which of course she couldn't because she's not good at reading and writing, then everything would have been understood far better, and Rudy probably would have left out of that going, okay, well, we will meet again soon. And that's when, of course, they'll be together again. A lot really happens. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What did you think of Volume 6 of Jobless Reincarnation? I'm very excited for Volume 7. I have an idea where the story is going. I'm very interested to read it because of some of the complaints about it, but we'll see what happens. Again, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more anime content, and I will see you, beautiful nerds, in the next video.